Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, we are pleased to announce that so far we have conducted numerous sessions under our series Intellectual Property Rights, and since our previous sessions we have been talking on patents. Dear friends, in this session also we would be discussing on patents, but specifically we are going to talk on pharmaceutical patenting and public health, and for this we have again with us in our studios Mr. Ashwani Sewal. Mr. Ashwani Sewal is Assistant Professor in IP Laws and Data Security, Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. His experience would definitely help us out in understanding the topic pharmaceutical patenting and public health. So without wasting any time, I would like to welcome our guest, Mr. Ashwani Sewal. Mr. Sewal, welcome to the UGC lecture.
Thank you very much. Welcome viewers. A very good morning to all of you. Well, friends, I have dealt very exhaustively with the patent law in India. And we have dealt very exhaustively about the substantive requirements for obtaining the patent, and we now, I assume that the viewers now understand as to how a patent can be obtained and on what particular thing a patent can be obtained, or you can say that what would be the subject matter for obtaining the patent. Well friends, our today's discussion would be little a kind of a intricacy in the patent law, or you can say that it is an advanced area which I will be going to touch upon today in my discourse. I will be focusing on the pharmaceutical patenting in India. Well friends, pharma patents in the modern day economy are very important, and there takes place a lot of pharmaceutical patenting in India. The question is, see, as to how many Indian patent applicants are there in terms of statistics. If you see, so we find that the number of patent applicants in Indian context, and especially indigenous patent applicants, are very low vis-a-vis to the foreign applicants obtaining the patents on pharmaceutical inventions or innovations. But see friends, pharmaceutical patenting plays a very important role, because pharma industry based primarily on research and development, and they do invest lot of money and capital in their research and development, and that research and development as a corollary gives us lot many inventions and innovations in terms of drugs, in terms of some sort of preparations for the redressal of the ailments and something like that. But friends, our concern here is to see as to how this pharmaceutical patenting is important, and what and in what manner it addresses the issue of access of medicines to the public. As you know, the law, for that matter any law, it's not only about the intellectual property law, that law takes place the public interest as well in its mind while getting implemented. So it has to check the individual interest of the applicant obtaining the drug patent on the one hand, and the interest of the public at large on the another, so that the public gets benefit and public gets some sort of access at an affordable price to the drugs. But that does not take place in actual. It seems like a stark a kind of facade where you see that the public does not get the access, does not get the prices at a affordable prices of the medicine, and they do not get access to the cheaper medicines, even though the essential medicines are not getting access or given access to the patients or to the public at large. This is a big problem friends, that pharma industry being very you can say economically driven or drives on the perspective of money making, does not take care about the interest of the public. It does not provide the drugs at an affordable price. It kinds of strives to fetch more and more benefits and make more and more capital out of their inventions and innovations. Sometimes it seems very clinching when they aspire to get the patent protection and they obtain the monopoly and exclusivity on the drug and they make money. It seems quite convincing that they are doing so because they have invested a lot of money in the research and development. Because if you see the general chronology of obtaining one protection or one patent protection on a pharmaceutical invention, it takes more than 10-15 years for a scientist or for an innovator or for an applicant to finally get it done, because it is very intensive industry wherein the applicant, I mean the pharmaceutical company as such employs so many people for the research and development, and those scientists remains involved for lot many days together to come up with some sort of a new invention or a new innovation to address the malaise, to address the some sort of a ailment. And this finally takes 10 to 15 years or sometimes more than that, it depends, I mean, on the kind of the discovery, on the kind of the innovation for which the person is seeking the patent for. And apart from this research and development part, they have to take care of and comply the different aspects wherein drug regulatory authority comes into the picture, then the patent act comes into the picture. For obtaining the patent, they have to apply, they have to see whether their subject matter is perfect subject matter to be granted a patent protection or not. So there are several nuances or there are several stages involved as far as obtaining one protection on one particular drug is concerned. So what I said that, and what I mean to say is that sometimes it seems very convincing that one person, one company who has invested lot and has employed so many people and has invested so much of money in coming up with a drug, so they must be given some sort of exclusivity or a monopoly so that they can restore their restore their invested money so that they can earn something out of it. But if you see it from a different perspective, from the point of view of the public at large or from the perspective of the public needs access to the technologies, access to the medicines, access to the drugs. And as far as the agreement on trade related aspects of intellectual property is concerned, friends, it categorically mentions that the technology should be shared and the benefits of the technology should be percolated to the all of the people or to the public at large. So similarly, in the case of the pharmaceutical patenting, the benefits of the pharma patenting or benefits of the pharma innovation should also be percolated, or its benefits should be percolated to the public at large. There comes a very crucial question at this juncture, friends, whether this pharmaceutical industry is catering only few people or it caters to the public at large, because making a thing accessible and affordable is a different question altogether and a different aspect altogether, vis-a-vis to an aspect where they just come up with a drug and gets a patent over it. It's kind of easy to get it done. I mean, investing something and then employing people, undergoing the intensive procedure for obtaining the patent on it, and then finally getting the monopoly. It seems quite tilted for the benefit of the owner of the patent, or say tilted towards the pharmaceutical industry. But when it comes to the public at large, the public as such does not get anything unless the pharma industry makes it cheaper and accessible, makes it available at an affordable price to the public at large. So friends, let us start our discussion keeping in mind, or keeping this background in mind, that pharma industry is taking a leap bounds in India as well as in other nations, and India has been considered as one of the pharma hub for many nations across the world, and India caters the need of generic medicines of many nations, not only of India. So let us look at the things from a legal perspective and from the point of view of law, as to how law strikes a balance or strives to strike a balance between these two diametrically opposite interests, one of the public and another of the individual, the one who owns the patent on that particular pharma drug. Well, friends, some sort of stages that I would like to put across to make you understand as to how the drug prices are being fixed, as to how the drug is patented. If you see and look at the slide, research and development of drugs is highly capital intensive and uncertain activity, because it is based on trial and error with very low success rate. As highlighted by my friends, that it is very uncertain to say when the inventor will get the success in case of drug industry, in case of drug innovation. As mentioned by me, and as many of you must be aware, that it is a cumbersome process. It takes lot of time to finally come up with important and workable innovation in the pharma industry. If you see, on an average, it takes 12 to 15 years for a new drug to be developed and then commercialized. Developing a drug is one thing and then commercializing it another. And see, before the commercialization of the drug has to pass a very stringent test of clinical trial where it has to be checked or scrutinized on the parameter of its aptness, on the parameter of its compatibility, on the parameter of its safeness for the human consumption. So only 5 out of 1000 drugs go up to the human testing level. You see, only 5 out of 5,000 drugs go up to the human testing level, and mere 1 out of 5 is approved for human unsafe. 1 out of 5. So you can easily understand and make out that it is very tedious and a very cumbersome process. It is very complicated to make a workable drug invention in pharma industry after investing a lot of infrastructure, research and development capital investment takes place. Well, going ahead with another issue, friends, due to the exorbitant research and development investment, or say pharma companies invest a lot of money, they want to gain as much revenue as they can from new blockbuster drugs, and they use patenting strategies to maximize their profit. As mentioned by me, friends, and whatever we have discussed in our previous lectures, we now know that a pharma invention in the form of a drug, which is a product, can be given a patent protection. And when the pharma industry undergoes so many years of investment and faces such a stringent test of elevating it to a clinical trial and then obtaining a patent subsequently, they would strive certainly for obtaining the patent protection on a particular drug, and that attempt is primarily for making money and to get an exclusive right so that they can exclude others from unauthorizedly accessing their invention, unauthorizedly exploiting, selling, manufacturing their invention. They cannot do so. I mean, others cannot do so, as we have discussed in our previous lectures. So with this background and with this kind of a cumbersome process that a pharma industry has to usually face, we can understand that they will certainly aspire for obtaining a patent, and once they obtain it, they get a term of 20 years. That 20 years time period, friends, remains their exclusive time period when they have to get the returns and fetch the returns out of their invention or in drug innovation. Moving ahead, friends, if you see the patentability aspects of pharmaceuticals, then there are some important things that you must need to know and you must understand. I believe and assume at this juncture that everyone, all my listeners are aware about section 3D of the Patents Act. For a recapitulation, I'll tell you that section 3 especially deals with the subject matter of the patent, and it talks about the subject matter for patenting, or you can say it kinds of excludes these things which cannot be given a patent protection. And pharma inventions, pharma innovations are not at all falls under section 3. It means pharma innovations and pharma inventions are patentable. They can be granted a patent. But section 3D of section 3, it tries to kind of put a check on the frivolous attempt made by a person or an applicant for obtaining a patent on a new form of the known substance or on a new form of the already existing drug innovation, already existing drug invention. I am kind of restricting my discussion only on the pharma industry. That is why I am reading section 3D in terms or in relation with pharma inventions and innovations. Otherwise, the sweep and scope of section 3D is beyond pharma inventions and beyond pharma innovations. Restricting my discussion on section 3D to pharma innovations, you see, a new form of a known substance cannot be given a patent protection if it does not show the efficacy over the already existing substance. and that efficacy has been decided by the courts in different jurisdictions. In terms of pharmaceuticals, it should be the therapeutic efficacy to be proved before getting the patent protection or granting the patent protection. Well, that discussion will take when we will discuss a case law or when we will conduct a case study on section 3D, especially Novartis case versus Union of India of 2013, where the apex court of India, Supreme Court, has decided the matter in a very categorical and beautiful manner, tilting the weighing scale towards the public interest and upholding the law simultaneously. We cannot say that the law was not upheld in the case of the Novartis. So that we will discuss later, but the thing is that in the case of the pharmaceutical and drug patenting, you see, whether the product claimed is a novel or not, that has to be proved, and whether it involves some kind of a efficacy over the known substance needs to be proved as well. Well friends, there are some technicalities which are particularly technicalities of pharma industry. Sometimes a derivative can also be given a patent protection according to section 3D as highlighted and discussed by me just now, and that derivative needs to be what? It needs to show and prove the enhancement in the efficacy. A new form may be a derivative of the already existing work, already existing thing, but that new form needs to be proved or shown having or involving possessing some sort of enhancement in the efficacy, and that efficacy here means therapeutic efficacy of the derivative of the new form of the known substance. Well friends, coming to a very important thing, or you can say coming to a case study where Supreme Court of India decided the contention and the question of the validity of the section 3D of the Patent Act 1970. This imatinib mesylate, friends, is a derivative of already existing drug or already existing salt. Well friends, this imatinib mesylate or its derivative, which is a beta crystalline form, was applied to seek a patent protection, and you see the market name, the common name of this derivative is Gleevec, or this salt is Gleevec, and it cures the disease called leukemia, it cures the cancer patients. Well friends, if you see the whole saga of Novartis or the entire story of the Novartis, we have a record that 1992 Novartis filed an initial patent application in the United States covering the drug imatinib, which patent application also covered pharmaceutically acceptable salt. It was subsequently granted a patent. So we can easily make out that in 1992 Novartis filed an application and they got a patent protection on the imatinib, on the drug imatinib. Now you see the drug which is in question is imatinib mesylate, which is a derivative of imatinib, and it is a beta crystalline form of imatinib mesylate which is in question right now, or was in question right now in this case study before the apex court of the country. If you go further, in 1997 Novartis filed a patent application for a specific variation, or you can say a derivative of imatinib, that is imatinib mesylate salt, the beta crystalline form of that thing. There was found manipulative step under US patent law. The patent was granted for the United States. If you see friends, in United States, even on this specific variation or even on this derivative called imatinib mesylate and on its beta crystalline form, the patent was granted in the United States as they found a manipulative step involved in that particular derivative, in that particular specific variation. Going ahead, if you see in the year 1998 friends, Novartis filed an application in India for this beta crystalline form, and this did not disclose any improvement in efficacy. However, when India adopted section 3D in 2005, Novartis undertook some studies to meet the statutory requirement to show enhanced efficacy. Well friends, as far as this story goes and this fact sheet goes, one can understand that Novartis came up with the specific variation of the already existing substance, which is here imatinib mesylate, and they applied for obtaining a patent in India in the year 2005, because before 2005 India did not allow product patenting. It was only in the year 2005 that the product patenting was given a green signal in India after the amendment brought in the Patents Act in the year 2005. Well, friends, if you see the fact sheet and the fact matrix, it is easily to understand that at the time of filing the application on this derivative form in the year 1998, this Novartis, a pharmaceutical company, did not disclose any improvement in the efficacy, and which is a sine qua non for obtaining a patent protection. They did not disclose any kind of a improvement. However, when India adopted this section, they undertook some sort of studies for getting it done. Well, the moot questions before the Supreme Court in this case are as follows, friend. The matter went in appeal till Supreme Court, and finally the Supreme Court in the year 2013 decided the fate of this case. One long pending case. Earlier it was contested before the Madras High Court, then before that it was contested at the Intellectual Property Appellate Board, and now the Supreme Court jotted down certain questions to be answered, and finally to throw light on the issue of section 3D and on the fate of this particular case. Well, friends, the questions that are framed by the Supreme Court are as follows, which reads whether the mesylate salt form of imatinib had been disclosed and was therefore publicly known prior to 1997. If you see the first question, friends, as highlighted on the screen, it gives you a clear idea that there is a need to prove and show that the invention over which you are seeking a patent protection has not been made publicly known and has not been disclosed earlier. If it is disclosed earlier, as you know and you must be knowing, because you have heard me speaking on the substantive requirements for obtaining the patent and the different qualifications for obtaining the patent: novelty, non-obviousness. So you can easily understand and figure out that one who is aspiring to get the patent has to show and has to prove that the work has not been already disclosed in the public, is not available in the public, is not into the public domain. Another requirement of section 3D, especially of section 3D, is that there is a need to show and satisfy the requirement of enhanced efficacy in comparison with the earlier existing substance. So the moot question before the Supreme Court was to show or to see whether there lies any kind of enhanced efficacy in this particular claim. Well, the claim was as such. Novartis alleged that the beta crystalline form showed a 30% increase in bioavailability based on the tests conducted by Novartis on rats. It says that it has got an efficacy of almost 30% vis-a-vis to the earlier efficacy available. To prove that the beta crystalline form enhanced efficacy over other polymorphs, it was stated that the beta crystalline form has more beneficial flow properties, it has better thermodynamic stability, and it has lower hygroscopicity and increased bioavailability. So these are the claims and kind of vindicative arguments made by the Novartis while obtaining a patent on Gleevec or on the derivative or you can say on a specific variation of the already existing substance. They claimed that it has got a more beneficial flow properties, it is more and better thermodynamic in nature, and it has got a stability in terms of thermodynamic phenomenon, lower hygroscopicity and increased bioavailability. Well, friends, these were some of the arguments and some of the vindicative arguments pleaded by the Novartis in this case. If you go ahead and see the another challenge or another plea raised before the court was about the constitutional validity of section 3D, and it was raised before the Madras High Court, not before the Supreme Court. So if you talk about the constitutional validity of section 3D, it clearly reads and says that the judgment given by the Madras High Court clearly reads that it is constitutional as per the TRIPS, the contracting nation or the signatory nation does get a right or does have the leeway or does have the leeway and the flexibility to mold the legislation, national legislation, meeting the requirements of the nation, or to manipulate and maneuver the national legislation meeting the requirement of the public at large. And that is how section 3D got carved out and enacted in compliance with the TRIPS by taking advantage of the leeway and the flexibility provided under the TRIPS. Well, if you go ahead, friends, I would like to tell you something startling about this Gleevec, that this drug Gleevec costs around 1,20,000 per month if it is manufactured by Novartis. And when it was manufactured by Novartis, it used to cost around 1,20,000, but the generic version, generic cost is ranging between 8,000 to 12,000 for month. For whole month one can have a drug available in merely 10 to 12,000 rupees. Well, friends, I'll conclude in the later part, this same area I'll conclude the pharmaceutical industry patenting or pharmaceutical patenting of the drugs. I'll conclude in the next part. So we will move ahead for the next part after some time, friends. Welcome, friends. In the previous session we have discussed and seen the chronology of the Novartis in their unsuccessful attempt in getting the patent protection on their specific variation of the already existing substance or on the derivative which was named as imanathim mesylate. Well, friends, we have seen in the previous session that the drug was there available in India, but the cost was unaffordable and was kept very exorbitant. If we see the Indian population and if we see the kind of paying capacity of the Indian population, the drug was kind of unavailable or not at all accessible at that unaffordable and exorbitant price kept by the Novartis, because the drug's price was around 1,20,000 rupees for a month, whereas the Indian version or the generic version of that drug can be manufactured, can be made available, can be given an access to the patient merely in rupees 8 to 10,000 per month. Going ahead with this session, friends, I would like to tell you some of the international instruments or say international declarations which focuses or throws some sort of a light on this issue, on the issue of taking a leeway and on the issue of getting the flexibility to enact the law as far as question of drug patenting, as far as abuse of evergreening is concerned. Well, friends, coming to the international instrument, and the most comprehensive international instrument that we always delve upon and delve into is TRIPS, which stands as agreement on trade related aspects of intellectual property. If we see Article 27.2 of TRIPS, we have it on our slide. If you see, friends, it reads that members may exclude from patentability inventions the prevention within their territory of the commercial exploitation of which is necessary to protect order public or morality, including to protect human, animal or plant life or health. Well, friends, as I have demarcated it for your convenience, that the members who are the contracting nations, signatory nations of the TRIPS, they sometimes can exclude from the gamut of patentability some of the inventions and their commercial exploitations which are necessary for maintaining the human health, animal health, plant life, or to avoid any kind of a serious prejudice to the environment, provided that such exclusion is not made merely because the exploitation prohibited by their law. Well, if you want to see the kind of a background, friends, that we had after becoming the signatory of the TRIPS in the year 1995, I believe we can easily understand that India as such had no regime pertaining to product patenting before it became a signatory in the year 1995. We had an open regime for getting the drugs available or for making the drugs available to the society at large without inhibiting or restricting them at any juncture or at any stage. But after becoming a signatory of the TRIPS in the year 1995, it became little complicated for India to make the drugs available to the society and to the public at large, and which I believe is one of the foremost objective of the patent law in India, to make the inventions available to the public, to make the inventions workable for the public, to make the inventions useful and fruitful in contributing to the economic development of the nation. Well, if you see this Article 27.2, it gives a clear idea that a contracting nation or a signatory nation can take a flexibility and a leeway in formulating and enacting a law of the land. And this is what we did, that when we had to comply the TRIPS in the year 2005 after the passage or cessation of the transition period, we had to comply it as it is written, but keeping in mind some of the flexibilities and some sort of leeways available. And this is what we did by incorporating section 3D, which can effectively restrict the abuse of intellectual property, can effectively address the issue of evergreening in cases of pharma patenting or otherwise. Well, going ahead with the another international instruments, friends, if you see Doha Declaration on the TRIPS and public health, this declaration is categorical about the issue of public order and public health, and it kind of vindicates what the TRIPS said under Article 27.2. The TRIPS agreement also provides for a built-in mechanism for review through the biennial ministerial conference wide Article 71, and Doha Declaration was convened as this invoking powers under Article 71 or invoking the option under Article 71. This fourth WTO Ministerial Conference in Doha on November 14, 2001 adopted one declaration pertaining to public health, which becomes very crucial here for us to understand, because that declaration adopted by Doha in the fourth WTO Ministerial Conference is very useful and is very important for us to delve upon, because it has got a connection and a proximity and a relation in pharmaceutical patenting in this discussion, in this topic. Let us see what does this Doha Declaration read. It reads that we agree that the TRIPS agreement does not and should not prevent members from taking measures to protect public health. I would like to read it again, friends. We agree that the TRIPS agreement does not and should not prevent members from taking measures to protect public health. Accordingly, while reiterating our commitment to the TRIPS agreement, this WTO Ministerial Conference affirmed that the agreement can and should be interpreted and implemented in a manner supportive of WTO members' right to protect public health and in particular to promote access to medicines for all. The last part is very crucial, friends. If you read it again, and you must read it again, that the WTO Ministerial Conference held in Doha in the year 2012 adopted and affirmed that the agreement can and should be interpreted and implemented in a manner supportive of WTO members' right to protect public health and in particular to promote access to medicines. The two things which are noticeable here, protection of the public health and providing a protection of the public health or to the public health, and another is in particular to promote access to medicines for all. These are the two crucial things which are kind of offshoots of this declaration which we must keep in mind, and all the signatory nations should keep in mind. Even I'll say that the makers of the TRIPS as well as the important players across the world, important players I mean here, by referring to the important players I mean United States, Japan and other big nations and other big investors in terms of obtaining the patent. They must keep it in mind that the Doha Declaration exists and it is operative and it has to be read along with the TRIPS. What the TRIPS says, it provides a flexibility under Article 27.2 wherein one gets a leeway and a liberty and a flexibility to enact a legislation promoting the public health, providing access to the medicines. Doha Declaration reiterates it, reaffirms it, and it says that promoting public health has to be kept in mind, as well as in particular making drugs accessible, medicines accessible to all is the agenda, is the pivotal or say important aspect of Doha Declaration as well as of the TRIPS. So by having read the combined reading, or by reading it in a combined manner comprehensively, we come to the conclusion and we can say, if we go to the post TRIPS scenario, we find that these international rules are accepted by India, in particular the WTO TRIPS agreement, which provide a sufficient leeway or flexibility in the adoption of patenting standards to allow the approach adopted by the Indian Parliament, and this is what we did. So we can easily say that we are TRIPS compliant and we do comply Doha Declaration simultaneously, or we can say these two things are adopted by the India after TRIPS. Doha Declaration is adopted by India, or we can conclude here saying that our regime, which is generally criticized as non-compliant to TRIPS, is not non-compliant to TRIPS, rather it is TRIPS plus compliant, or it has features of complying other post-TRIPS things as well, including Doha Declaration, which is very important as far as the access to medicines and promotion of the public health is concerned. Well friends, if you see this post-TRIPS 1970 Act of India, it is nearly TRIPS compliant and it is a TRIPS plus regime coupled with Doha interpretation. It makes section 3D very rigid, because section 3D keeps a check on abuse of intellectual property, especially this evergreening, as well as rest of the things provided here under section 3D. And then it deals pharmaceutical based inventions with severity and meticulous examination is required under section 3D. So the post TRIPS Indian Patent Act, especially section 3D, is a reflection of Doha Declaration on the one hand, is a reflection of TRIPS on the other hand, and it has features which are the combined objectives envisaged under TRIPS as well as under Doha Declaration in the year 2001. Well friends, going ahead with the section 3D, which is a question of discussion or was a question of discussion under this Novartis versus Union of India, which is a case study of our present discussion. If you look at the language of section 3D, which has been carved and enacted by the Indian legislature or Indian Parliament, keeping in mind the Doha Declaration, keeping in mind the TRIPS, keeping in mind the flexibility and disadvantages provided under the TRIPS, this reads that the mere discovery of a new form of a known substance which does not result in the enhancement of the known efficacy of that substance, or the mere discovery of any new property or new use for a known substance, or of the mere use of a known process, machine or apparatus, unless such known process results in a new product or employs at least one new reactant. So what we get as far as the main language of section 3D is concerned, first of all, the mere word is written, which is suggestive that it is a mere discovery and it does not reach to the level to be called an invention, and only inventions are patentable. In India, discoveries are not patentable, cannot be patentable. So another noticeable aspect under section 3D, friends, that it requires and it stipulates that the new form for which a person is seeking a patent for must show or should result in the enhancement of the known efficacy of the already existing substance. And this is what is vindicated further through an explanation attached to section 3D, which reads that these are some of the things or which are specific variations, or we can call derivatives, are not patentable because they do not result into the enhancement of the efficacy, and if they do result in the enhancement of the efficacy of the known substance, significantly if they differ into the properties with regard to efficacy, only then they can be granted the patent protection, otherwise not. Now coming to the fact sheet of the Novartis, friends, Novartis claimed the patent protection on the specific variation of the known substance imatinib, and that specific variation was named as imatinib mesylate, and its beta crystalline form was sought to be given a patent protection in this case study. Well, if we analyze the present claim of this appellant Novartis in light of section 3D, we find that it does not fit under section 3D and it cannot be granted a patent protection under section 3D. Why I am saying so? That becomes a question of interpretation, and that becomes a question to be determined on the basis of the fact sheet as well as on the evidences led and adduced by the appellant before the court as well as before the Intellectual Property Appellate Board, earlier before the Patent Office for obtaining the patent. If you see, in the year 1998, when they applied for the exclusivity right, they did not adduce any kind of evidence showing enhancement in the efficacy over the existing work in their so-called specific variation of the already existing work in their so-called claim. Later on, in the year 2005, when they reapplied, they conducted certain studies, and those studies conducted by them are not sufficient enough to prove that their claim, their work, which is a beta crystalline form of the imatinib mesylate, serves the purpose, or you can say serves the black written law as given under section 3D, or fits into the gamut of the black written law as given under section 3D, because section 3D categorically says, read along with its explanation, read along with the TRIPS 27.2, read along with Doha Declaration of the year 2001, that only those specific variations and only those new forms of the known substance can be given a patent which shows significant improvement, which shows enhancement in the efficacy. But the Novartis claim couldn't able, or Novartis as such couldn't able to adduce the evidence, to lay the evidence before the court of law, proving the efficacy, showing the efficacy to that extent, especially to an extent where the court gets convinced that their claim or their claim, so especially their drug, which is a specific variation of the already existing substance, has got a efficacy. Well, if you see some of the noticeable aspects of section 3D, friends, as highlighted by me, the word mere has been used here. Another important aspect is that it talks about the enhancement of the known substance efficacy, or efficacy in the known substance. And here in this context, as decided by the Supreme Court, that efficacy means in this context therapeutic efficacy. Well, this exclusion of this kind of a known substance or new form of the known substance under section 3D is premised on the principle that what is already known is not an invention, because it is a mere discovery as used in the very beginning of section 3D. The word mere is suggestive of this. Well, if you go ahead with the threadbare analysis of section 3D of the Patent Act, as told by me on many occasions, that it is based on a premise of public health, based on a premise of access to medicines, wherein it provides a safeguard to the public health, it provides or tries to curb the mischief of evergreening, it disallows patenting of new forms of known substances, and test here put by section 3D is very rigid and stringent, to resulting into or leading to what? A significant enhancement of efficacy is to be shown and proved. If there is no significant enhancement in the efficacy, then the claim will get denied, will get refused, and no patent would be granted to the claimed invention or claimed innovation of the pharma sector. Well, what is the efficacy criteria, friends? As discussed in this case law, in this case study of Novartis AG versus Union of India in the year 2013 by the Supreme Court, it talks about how is efficacy, or it basically can be analyzed and gauged, how is efficacy to be determined. That was a pertinent question before the court of law as to how they would determine the efficacy. It has to be decided from the doctor's point of view, or it needs to be decided from a patient's point of view, or it needs to be decided from the researcher's point of view. These can be some of the possible and crucial questions as far as the word efficacy is concerned, because when we have to prove that the work which they are seeking a patent for involves enhanced efficacy and has got significant improvement vis-a-vis to the already existing product, vis-a-vis to already existing substance, then from whose perspective this efficacy has to be seen. The court in this case study zeroed in to the point that this efficacy needs to be therapeutic efficacy only, and therapeutic here, as per the definitions available of the word therapeutic, is suggestive, or it means therapeutic effect means that the efficacy of the drug on the body of the person, on the disease of the person, that has to be seen, that has to be checked, whether the new variation or the specific variation or a derivative of the known substance has got an improvement in terms of curing the ailment, in curing the illness and sickness of the person. If that exists, if that can be found, can be proved, then it can be termed efficacy in the new variation, can be termed as a sufficient efficacy in the new variation to be granted a patent. Well, the Donald's Medical Dictionary defines efficacy in the field of pharmacology as the ability of the drug to produce the desired therapeutic effect. This is the dictionary meaning of the word efficacy. And then efficacy is independent of potency of the drug. Well, friends, this discussion may help you in identifying and understanding as to what does efficacy mean here. As decided by the court, efficacy here means therapeutic efficacy, and that can be further interpreted and deciphered to mean kind of efficacy or the ability of the drug to redress and to cure the sickness and illness of the person. Then this efficacy criteria was further discussed by the court in this case law. I am skipping some of the parts or some of the important things that you can later on think or read on your own. What is that substantial increase in efficacy to be shown? What is the yardstick? Is it the substantial efficacy or the significant efficacy? As such, the law, the Patents Act 1970 does not anywhere define efficacy word and does not provide us with the yardstick or the parameter to call something efficacious and something inefficacious. But some of the questions that got raised in this case law before the court of law, what would be the yardstick? Whether it is the substantial efficacy has to be seen, or it is a efficacy which would be gauged in terms of its percentage. It can be 5% efficacious, 10% efficacious, 30% or more than 50%. So who determines the quantum, and would it be the same for a headache tablet and an anti-cancer tablet? These are some of the disturbing and perturbing questions. So that efficacy would vary from drug to drug, would vary from context to context. That what we can make out from the court, and this is what the court categorically mentioned in this case study, that the efficacy remains purely contextual and a question of basically the adduced evidences, to be determined on the adduced evidences, that as to whether this particular drug or whether this particular new substance is efficacious in this context or not. If it is efficacious in that context, it gets a green signal by the patent office and can be granted a patent protection. If it does not prove the efficacy in that context, it can be in terms of percentage, it can be anything. In terms of perspective, it can be anything. And in terms of different inventions, the efficacy has to be gauged differently. If it can be if it is a machine, obviously the efficacy of a machine has to be gauged and measured from a different parameter vis-a-vis to a drug efficacy whose function here is to address the ailment and sickness of the person, and as well as to cure the illness of the person. So this question purely concludes at one point, and that point is that the efficacy is contextual. It is to be adjudged, it is to be gauged from the parameter of that particular context, from the parameter of that particular respective context and respective invention and innovation. Well, friends, I'm going ahead with the conclusion. Finally, I would like to conclude here as far as this case study is concerned. So there are certain important points which I would like to kind of reiterate for you, because they are important as a takeaway for the today's discussion and of this session especially. What we have learnt in our today's discussion, friends, we have learned that pharmaceutical industry invests lot of money, invests capital, and undergoes a rigorous and a stringent process in obtaining in innovating a drug, and finally in obtaining a patent. And they aspires to make money because they have invested lot, and it takes on an average 12 to 15 years altogether to come up with a drug which can be called an apt drug or an workable drug, and then another 3, 4, 5 years in obtaining the patent for the same. So after investing that much of expenditure and time, they would certainly require to get the exclusive right on that particular innovation or pharma invention. Another aspect of my today's discourse was towards the public health, or was towards the right of the public at large, wherein I have kind of tried my best to make you understand that public health and public accessibility to the medicines has been the question of concern, is a question of concern even today, and has been deliberated in many of the comprehensive treaties relating to intellectual property and its trade, especially TRIPS, and later on in the year 2001 in the Doha Declaration. It has been categorically mentioned that as far as the question of promoting public health is concerned, as far as question of access to medicines is concerned, then in these two cases, or in these two specific or special cases, the signatory nation, contracting nation, is always allowed to enact the law in such a fashion which can serve the purpose of the public as well as of the individual applicant seeking the patent protection. The Indian Patent Act 1970 of this case study has tried its best by enacting section 3D to curb the abuse on the one hand and providing the patent protection on the other hand to the pharma innovation and industry, and the term remains 20 years for enjoying the monopoly. After that, it has to fall to the public domain. There are certain other measures also in case that particular abuse is not get checked, or is not getting hit by section 3D, we have some other measures available with us to kind of put a restraint and check on money making tactics of the pharma industry, of the pharma innovation sector. Well, I rest here, friends. I'll meet you in the next session with another case study, that is Bayer versus Nutco, and it is on compulsory licensing. See you. Good day.
With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving us a productive session once again. And dear friends, as Mr. Ashwini Siwal himself said, that we would be meeting in the next session. Very soon we would be plan on that session. Till then, take care, goodbye. And yes, keep watching us. For you, we have been continuously and constantly uploading these lectures on YouTube for your accessibility the number of times you wanted. As I said, we would be meeting again. Till then, take care, goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.